Have to do some investigation on that for the next meeting.
Yeah. Approach the lectern, please.
Should we get our terminology correct?
Everyone got a packet?
Yep. Ready? Okay.
Make sure you speak in your microphone and it's turned on. Sorry, they're not turned on, I don't believe.
Mine's on.
Okay.
That's the one thing I remember from a few years ago. All right. I'd like to call to order the Wednesday, May 11th, 2022 meeting of the Tenino Planning Commission. Let the record show that all commissioners are present. Nice. All righty. So let's take a look at the agenda. Not a lot on here. Did you add the FEMA information on here?
Yeah, I think that's unfinished business number 3.
Okay. I had mentioned that Wayne wanted us to talk about
Yeah, Dave mentioned that today.
the possibility of developing some kind of permitting system for allowing people to live in like an RV or within a residential lot for more time than it's currently allowed. I think we're allowed 14 days now. But the mayor asked us to discuss it. What other cities are doing, and is there a way that we can craft like some requirements that would, if you get a permit, allow you to live in your RV for a more extended amount of time?
So you want to do that at number 4, under like new business?
Yeah, new business, yes. That's right. Okay, so with that addition, how do you guys think the agenda looks?
I'll move to approve the agenda with the addition of the temporary occupancy and recreational vehicle or travel trailer topic to the agenda.
All right.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Let's take a look at the minutes from the March 9th meeting. Oh, we didn't meet in April, so.
I'll move to approve the March 9th, 2022 regular meeting minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. No members of the public are here. Do we have any reports, Jen, from the mayor or the council? No? Nice. No public hearing tonight, so unfinished business. Dan, you want to talk to us about the Tenino FEMA coverage?
Yeah. Thanks, Chair. And first, I'd like to tell you everyone how nice it is to see all of you, and good to be here in person. And I think meeting in person will potentially help us bring people in and engage in the conversation. So we've got a couple good things to share with you. First, for starters, I wanted to introduce you to Ryan Patrick Shea. He's on the screen here. He's a new planner that we hired at SCJ Alliance. He'll be helping me out with the city of Tenino as we got our hands full here. There's a lot going on, so we're going to chat about that. And Ryan, you want to talk about where you're at and kind of a little bit of your background just by way of introduction?
Sure, yeah, sorry, it's kind of cutting in and out, FYI. I don't know if I was cutting in and out. But, did you ask for an introduction, Dan?
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, planning commissioners. My name is Ryan Shea. I'm a planner with SCJ. I'm hailing tonight from North Idaho. I've been a planner in North Idaho for the past 7 years, primarily in the public sector. It looked like it was cutting in and out.
You're good. We got audio.
And I've had for the past couple of years, I've been in the private sector, and then before then, I worked as a GIS technician in a surveying office. So, yeah, I'm thrilled to be here
Ryan is a certified floodplain manager. So I said, hey, why don't we tackle this thing in Tenino that we've got with FEMA coverage? So Ryan has put together a memo that hopefully you had a chance to look at. And we're going to do a little briefing, or he's going to do a little briefing. He put together some slides to talk through kind of what that looks like, and have a discussion and let you know what the plans are for moving Tenino back into the good graces of the floodplain insurance program. So I can go ahead and advance the slides from my side. I don't know if you want to do it on your side. You want me to share screen, Ryan?
I can push it from my end if that would work.
Yeah, let me advance them from this side too. We'll just tag team it because I think, yep, you're going to present. Okay. I think that might work. I'm not sure which screen that is up there. So we're looking at a screen here and like simulcasting on this side.
So I'm going to swap my notes slide with the actual presentation. So do you see it now?
Well, it's already up on our side. I don't think you're simulcasting to the thing. So if you just want to reference it on your side and I'll advance it on this side, I think that's probably the easiest.
Okay.
Let me see if that's the case.
Stop presenting. Okay. Well, good evening all. So like Ian said, I'm a certified floodplain manager. I've primarily been most of my floodplain management experience has been in the private sector helping folks figure out permitting process
That's a distinction between shaded Zone X and just Zone X unshaded, right?
So,
Because
if I heard
yeah, the unshaded Zone X is outside of the floodplain, correct?
yeah, so basically the rest of the city is unshaded zones. It's just not shown on the maps, it's just shown as like nothing. Go ahead and click next in. So the next component I wanted to cover is the floodway. The floodway is the most dangerous portion of a flood area when floods occur. This is where the waters are flowing. It's basically the river or creek, and then kind of the low-lying surrounding areas. This is typically you'll have, I've seen pictures of mobile homes floating down floodways. Propane tanks are another very common thing to float down floodways and cause absolute havoc on bridges and culverts and things like that. So regulatory speaking, you really don't want to see many things being built in the floodway. Typically, the only things that are allowed are minor encroachments like bridges and other really small things like minor fill and whatnot. So go ahead and click next in. And then the last thing I wanted to cover was I was made aware of one of the issues in town south of it's Quarry Cool, right? There's a pretty large hill, and there's a lot of water that flows down that hill that creates other flooding issues in the community. And you'll see that there's no mapping of these flooding issues. So what then? So thank you for that question in regards to Zone X, because that's where I'm going next. So the rest of the town is Zone X, meaning the entire town is within, floodplain. So anyone in town can purchase flood insurance. So if there's someone outside of the floodplain that is regularly flooding for whatever reason and they want flood insurance, they can get that. And it will be pretty cheap because they're outside of the actual map floodplain. The caveat there is that the community has to be a participating member of the National Flood Insurance Program, which Tenino currently is not. And then before we go from this slide, I just wanted to mention that administratively, the Planning Commission is per code completely hands off when it comes to any kind of decision making with floodplain issues. Floodplain procedures are handled basically at the administrative level by the planner, building official, engineer. And then if there are processes that do have to go before a decision-making body, they go before the city council, and those processes are appeals and variances. And if anyone has any questions, go ahead. Feel free to interrupt anytime.
I have a question. You mentioned that if you're in Zone X and you're in a participating community, you can buy flood insurance, but since we're not participating, you can't.
Can you repeat the question?
He's still going. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. So you mentioned that if you live in Zone X, you can buy flood insurance, but if you're not in a participating community, you can't buy it. So if you live in the floodplain in if you live in Zone AE in a non-participating community, can you buy flood insurance or no?
No, you cannot.
I see. Nice. I was just curious.
So that's the rub right now. So if you want to buy it, you can't.
So when it flooded like last year or the year before in Houston Street area, those people didn't have flood insurance and they weren't covered. Is that
Right.
probable?
Yeah, that's right. So if they tried to file a claim, there was nobody to file a claim because they're not insured. The way you can get some financial assistance is through the declaration of an emergency. So if my understanding is that the governor or the president declares an emergency, either a statewide or nationwide
It has to be on a state level, not the local level, yeah.
Right, so the mayor can't declare emergency and now all of a sudden people are eligible for FEMA coverage.
Okay, thank you, that's it, yeah.
So, what I'm hearing is not only does it prevent new participants from signing up, it also invalidates anybody who had existing flood insurance as well?
Correct.
No.
The existing folks with policies
That would
cannot
be
renew their
disappointing.
policies until the city becomes a participating member.
Great.
Next slide, Dan. Wait, yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Okay, so this is, I wanted to share these images because this is really the core of the issue here. These images show on the left the old data and map, and then the one on the right shows the new data on the east side of town, primarily outside, but I chose this area because it was easy to see the differences. So essentially, I mean, when these changes are made, a community has 6 months upon, it's called a letter of final determination by FEMA, saying like, okay, the study is done, the study is complete, it's adopted, okay, communities, adopt these new studies, or else. And that's what happened in Tenino. No new ordinance was drafted to adopt the study. Now, a new ordinance typically is a pretty usually minor changes, and it could be as small as Tenino needing to literally say, the only changes that need to be made, we hereby adopt these new studies that were done in 2020. And that really could be the only thing. So to that end, we've engaged with Department of Ecology. You go to the next slide, Dan. We've engaged with Department of Ecology staff. Washington's really good with basically having experts that can provide technical assistance, like ecology staff. I mean, they have floodplain staff that this is what they do, help communities get back into the NFIP. And we have a staff member who is basically taking your current ordinance and comparing it with what's known as the state model ordinance and determining what needs to be changed, if really anything. But at the very least, language referencing the new studies will need to be added to the whole ordinance, which is from 2016. In terms of next steps, we have the staff member looking at the ordinance. New ordinance will need to be drafted with the required changes. That ordinance will need to be reviewed and adopted by council. And then once that occurs, evidence can be submitted to FEMA, and the ecology folks are happy to help with facilitating that. But once that occurs, Tenino should get back into the NFIP. So with that, that's my presentation. And if there are any more questions, let me know.
So there's nothing for us to take action on then, if I'm understanding correctly?
Yeah, that's right. I don't believe there's any action. We were just updating you since there are development regulation components of this because you notice the mapped floodplains are different. And so properties that are in that area will have impacts in ways that they didn't previously have impacts. So we didn't talk too much today about what those regulations mean. There's a whole section of code 5.24 is the flood regulations. And that's what says, look, if you want to build in this place, you have to elevate your structure, or you have to, if you bring fill in, there's compensatory mitigation, which is a hassle. So there's a whole host of different things depending on what zone you're in.
When developers are citing subdivisions and things like that, they'll oftentimes look at constraints. Floodplain is one of the first constraints they'll look at. So when the map changes, it can alter plans quite a bit.
Right, and this map is probably, the old versus new map is probably a good way to see how that's illustrated. It's a lot finer grain. You can kind of just tell someone spent, they had a better model at that point. And so the one other thing I was going to mention as Ryan was talking was the state has a requirement for essential public facilities have to be elevated 3 feet over the base flood elevation. So that's that freeboard he was talking about. But the essential public facilities, that's like a fire station or school or something like that, has to be 3 feet outside of the BFE. Or 1 + 3. So 4.
We don't have a lot of developed properties in the floodplain in the city limits. Is that accurate? Except maybe Houston, it looks like some properties there on the east side of town maybe got a little backyard intrusion in the new data, but
Right,
Yeah, that's what I was looking at too.
right.
Minimal.
We can look at further down Scatter Creek, south of 99, and like see what it looks like down that direction. But I think it mostly stays within that basin.
And just as a point of clarification, when determining whether something is in or out, it's structure related, and it just needs to be like one teeny corner in the floodplain to basically determine if you're completely in the floodplain or not.
Does it affect all structures? I don't know, shops, ADUs?
Barns,
Aren't- yeah.
pole barns.
Great.
do you know if anybody is looking to build in the floodplain?
So, go ahead.
I was just wondering, is somebody looking to build in the floodplain now that they're being prohibited because they need to have insurance in order to be able to finance the construction or something? Or is this purely just to protect the existing citizens?
Yeah, I don't think that there is any person out there who's trying to build something that can't get insurance for the structure they want to build. What
No.
we did have is people saying, I want to buy insurance and I'm not allowed to. I'm concerned about flooding and I can't even get, a bank to offer me a policy.
Was
Right.
there a rationale in not changing the ordinance in 2020, or did it just kind of fall through the cracks?
We think it was an oversight. I mean, everything kind of hit right when COVID came through in early 2020, and we didn't pick it up.
That makes sense.
So,
All right. I was just curious.
and I don't know, Ryan, if we know when Ecology is going to get back to us.
So yeah, time frame, I should have mentioned that. The ecology gentleman I talked to, he gave a time frame of, basically said it shouldn't be a very complicated process. We can get it done in roughly 3 months. That obviously depends on meeting schedules and whatnot for city council, but it should be a pretty quick process.
And is that program then open immediately after that ordinance is approved? People can start buying insurance for this next winter or next flood season? Or do they have to wait until a certain?
That's a good question. I imagine that it can occur shortly after, if not immediately after. But I'm no expert on policies and if there's any curveballs here.
I don't know how long Region 10 at FEMA would take to validate that you've done the proper steps to be reinstated in NFIP. So I'm guessing that's a couple weeks or a month and a half or whatever in order to get you back in the, into the program. Because they'll probably have to, FEMA will have to look at your regulations and make sure that they're good with them being, maybe the letter from Ecology stating that, this model's, the state model is sufficient, but I don't know. It shouldn't be too long though, but.
Be nice to get it before next winter. Seems like we're
Yeah,
getting 100-year floods every,
Yeah, and I don't know enough about actual floodplain insurance to know whether stormwater coming off the hill that's running down the street's going to be covered, or whether they are saying, hey, that's not Scatter Creek, you know,
That's not covered.
cut right.
Gotcha.
But I think that the point of it is we believe it was an oversight, so we're trying to get back right.
Yeah.
And so I think if there are no other questions, that's it for us on the.
Well, would it be worthwhile to find out if the stormwater, you say it's coming off the hill or whatever in the park, would it be worthwhile to find out if those people can buy flood insurance and if they'd be covered? Because I know there's at least a couple houses by that triangle over there that I'm sure they had water damage. I don't know how expensive it was, but.
I think you said the whole city could get it though.
Right, so
Anybody in the city, even if you don't think you're gonna get it.
I thought you were saying you might not be able to get it.
I know you can get it when you're back in the NFIP because you're in the unshaded X, right? So you're allowed to get it.
Okay.
But I don't know whether that coverage that is offered by Travelers or whoever, you know, State Farm or whoever gives you flood insurance is going to cover stormwater versus floodwaters. That's the part I don't know.
So I guess I was gonna say, is it worthwhile to mention that area to FEMA in terms of the next study, so that maybe they'll look at that area and include it so that they would cover it?
Does FEMA, Ryan, cover storm water coming off a hill?
It is a creek coming down off the hill, but then it goes into a flat plain of the ball fields that used to be a wetland, and there's nowhere for it to go, and then it drains away. So it's stormwater, but it's there right now, and it hasn't rained. I mean, we could go over and look at the water right now. So I'm just wondering about the distinction. I mean, it's not technically part of Scatter Creek, but that drainage went to Scatter Creek historically.
Sure,
So.
I get you.
Yeah, that's an important point, and I mean, these maps are not infallible and perfect, they're oftentimes pretty rough, and they're not meant to be perfect, so when these studies occur, FEMA works with communities to identify areas that should be included, so maybe that area south of the pool should be included to some extent. And I'm happy to follow up with FEMA staff at state level to figure out any nuances in regards to if things like flooding from the quarry pool area are covered under insurance policies.
Yeah, I just wouldn't want citizens to feel like they have something some kind of coverage that they don't actually have.
Right. The best case scenario is to be in the least risky spot so that your insurance is the cheapest, and then be covered for, you know, anything else, because, you know, your risk is going to make your premium lower.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Anybody have any other questions regarding the FEMA coverage? No? All right, Ryan, thank you for your time. Feel free to stick around and enjoy the temporary occupancy recreational vehicles discussion, but
Thank you.
yeah. Okay, so moving on, if there's no other unfinished business to new business, the mayor has asked us to look at the temporary occupancy of recreational vehicles or travel trailers, and whether we can allow that to be permitted, and what we, you know, basically have a discussion about what that would look like. Who made this? Did you?
I did,
Oh.
yeah.
Thank you. Dave's made a very nice write-up of a possible regulation. So let's take a minute to look at that, and then, you know, start a discussion about it. Did you get this from another city, or?
I just got online and started looking at a bunch of other examples of cities that had regulations and tried to glean stuff off of those, and this is kind of just a rough draft of things I thought would be important to cover.
Sure.
And
Do you want to lead the discussion? on
Sure.
it?
if you
Yeah,
want.
okay,
Whenever
go ahead.
you guys are ready, if you want to
Okay, yeah.
take. Anyway, I had talked to Wayne and Will about this a little bit a few weeks ago. And our current regulation says you can live in a travel trailer on a private property for 15 consecutive days without a break. And then you have to have a break of an additional 15 days before you can occupy that again. And I've heard from some residents that that is a problem. I think you see it in town a lot. When I've walked around a lot, I see trailers. You know, I don't go knock on their door and ask them if they have somebody living in them, but they sure appear like they have somebody living in them. And it appears it's been more than 15 days. And I've heard from people that say like they have a parent that comes up here from Arizona during the summer, and 15 days just doesn't seem like enough time, and you know, they're not causing any problems, and they would like to see that extended a little bit. And then on the other side of it, we've been talking about housing and, you know, people losing their housing and needing someplace temporarily to stay. And I know we're looking at that issue overall in the housing plan, but my kind of thought was, well, can we do something in the meantime until we complete that housing plan that can help people that may be temporarily out of a place to live, and they have somebody here in town that could let them stay at their place for a period of time. So that's how I kind of got started on this. And like I said, I just went through got on the web and went through some other communities and what they did as far as what they allowed for temporary housing in RVs or travel trailers. And I came up with this. Like I said, this was just my first stab at something just to start a discussion. So anyway, that's kind of how I came to this. And this would allow for 120 days. Starting at the top, I guess it wouldn't affect anything in the parks or anything. This is just strictly for lots in the city that already have a residence on them. So it can't even be an empty lot that's there. Somebody just can't put a trailer on an empty lot. It has to be an established site. Like I said, for 120 days. Can't be parked on a right-of-way. I don't think we want to allow this travel trailer sitting out in front of the house on our public right-of-way. So I put that in there. I talked about buffer areas here. Can't be placed in any critical zone so if you're in a flood zone, it can't be placed in a flood zone or anything like that. They have to have access to adequate power and water. And then one of the things that was talked about is having a way to dispose of the gray and black water. You know, most people aren't going to want to set up a trailer and have to move it every time they need to do their tank. So what I saw other places doing, either you have to have a portable tank, you know, they make portable tanks that you can hook up to. And the question that I have not had answered yet is, can they hook into the sewer system? I know a lot of places have clean outs, you know, places with a small opening where you can go into the sewer system. So I don't know what the consequences. I haven't talked to Troy yet of if that would cause any problems, but I did include that in here. And the thing that we talked about when I was meeting with Wayne was at least have some kind of small fee to recognize that additional sewage is going into our system. So I put $25 a month, but I don't know if that's the right number, but I just threw that in there. If they are able to hook into the sewer, there would be some fee for that. Then one of the things I thought was really important to put in there is if there's any evidence of them dumping either gray or black water onto the ground, that would be immediately revoke their permit to have that trailer there. So if anybody's doing anything they shouldn't be, that would immediately revoke it. No generators or anything like that would cause a noise problem. I did put in there, I don't know if this is right, but I said it should be on the side or in a backyard versus sitting in somebody's front yard, just to make it a little bit more palatable. I think a lot of people saw a bunch of trailers sitting in people's front yard for an extended period of time. That probably wouldn't go over very well, but people now park their trailers in their side yards and have them sitting there, so I don't see that's much of a change if somebody already has a trailer there. So that's what I put in there for that. Requires removal after the end of the permit within 14 days, unless it's the property owner's trailer. And then I put at the very end there that recreational vehicles that are only gonna be there for 14 days don't need to get this permit, just kind of like it is now. You don't have to get a permit if you want to stay short, just have somebody stay there short. But this would be only for longer than 14 days. So that's kind of where, and it can be renewed if, my kind of thought is, hey, if they're doing things the right way and there's not a lot of complaints, they can ask for a renewal. And my thought would be if there's not a problem, it's not causing any problems, neighbors aren't complaining, that they would have the opportunity to renew that if they needed it. So anyway, that was my first stab at it. I'm interested to hear what other people think about it.
Yeah, no, I really like the idea. So it's 120 days and then a 15-day period where they have to remove it.
I didn't put that in there. I put,
Okay,
the
okay.
way my thought was it's 120 days. They can either vacate at that point
Or renew.
or they can renew.
Okay,
There's
okay.
There's no 15 days if they can renew it, if it's renewed.
But you can leave it there for 14 days without a permit, so.
Totally,
You
right,
kind of
right.
have 14
Yeah.
days afterwards.
Yep. So now, I guess, my thing's number one. So it sounds like we wouldn't be allowing RVs to be parked like roadside in the front of a house, right? So they have to be completely on the private property.
Right.
And then the only other thing is, the gray water and the black water. Figuring out a mechanism to regulate that, and only because people can get lazy.
Yeah.
And-
That was my kind of biggest
Right.
concern. How is that going to?
And they start out with the best of intentions, but pretty soon flipping the valve is a lot easier, right? And so, that would be my only concern. Now, with that said, though, I mean, the idea of, in-laws coming up for the summer, and if again, we're talking about you'd have to have water, power, right? So obviously you're going to probably have an established pad or at least a gravel pad, so it's something that's set up. I love the idea of just being able to house more people within city limits. One thing that I've been really interested in looking at is the accessory dwelling unit, seeing how we can allow people to create income on their properties while, creating more affordable housing for different people in different situations. So, I really like this idea. I think my things would just be, aesthetically.
Right.
How do we make sure that we don't turn into a
Right. Just
RV
yeah.
/ house community, And I don't think that would happen, but I'm just saying
Right.
those are things we need to be thinking about.
That's kind of why I put the 120 day, there has to be a renewal. So if people are just got junk stuff all over the place there, that would allow us to, they have 4 months, and if they weren't following the guidelines or junk was accumulating, we would have the opportunity not to renew that permit again. If, even if they wanted to, we could deny that.
So, really, we'd want to have some really, really clear guidelines on what's accessible or what's allowed. Because what you just said about junk, like I'm even
What's
thinking,
one person's junk? Yeah. Isn't it?
well, and then the other thing too is you got your trailer and that works out great, but you realize that every time you come in and out of the door, you get wet. So now all of a sudden you've built an awning. Well, the rain's still coming into the side, so now you've wrapped, tarps around it. Pretty soon, someone's trailer. You know what I'm saying? You don't want a hobo village, right? So if we just had very clear expectations on it's the trailer unit itself, no additions, modifications.
Right.
You
see somebody with a porch and all that kind of stuff.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
But then again, it would also be different. If someone had their pad and they had a regular grandparent that came, maybe they do build a porch, but they would have to get a permit, and it would be really professional. And it would look established like it was always meant to be there, So we want to still have leeway, but we also want to make sure we protect ourselves.
Right. And that's kind of where I struggle a little bit too, because you want to make sure it stays clean and it's not a bunch of, like you said, but how do you identify every situation?
Totally.
Yeah,
And then
how do you?
the other thing I think of too is in any RV, you're not going to have a lot of storage.
Right.
So all of a sudden, does a tote go next to the front door, and then there's 3 totes, and then there's a fridge?
We do have regulation on that one, because I was part of the council when we approved that. You can't.
Okay.
But there is regulations around that, but
Perfect.
yeah.
Did you get a sense of how much these permits go for usually?
I didn't see, it didn't, where I looked, it didn't have fees, kind of fee schedules are usually someplace else, so that we'd have, my hope was we keep it reasonable. If people want to have their in-laws up for longer, I don't want to charge somebody $500 to have a trailer for 4 months, but something at least to cover the cost of, somebody going out and checking and make sure they have everything set up correctly, and, so I don't know what that would be, but there seems to be some reasonable fee to for those permits.
It seems like our grinder pump setup, I've had my pump replaced several times, so I've seen the inside of it a bunch of times. It seems like it would be really easy to retrofit the lid with like an access port, since it's on the surface anyway, without having to do a lot of underground work, and you could just plug into the lid just like you would if you were at a campsite or something, and dump it right into your grinder pump. I mean,
In my case, I have a clean, I don't know if it's from when we had septic or not, I have a 4-inch clean out right by the side of my house. So to tell you the truth, my son was building the house and he stayed in the trailer next to my house for a while. That's how this one of the reasons why this came up for me. And like I said, I don't know if that causes any problems with the sewer putting, I don't see what it would cause besides just some extra,
Right. So, but that's one thing though, I think that we'd want to look at is trying to make sure that if we did go into something like this, we have the means to make it really sustainable, right? So if someone did want to say, hey, you know what, I have a situation, I have a spot on the side of my yard, I want to have power, water, and a sewer hookup.
Right.
I mean, that would be ideal, right? Because then when the person comes up, they're plugging right in. They're going to be taken care of. It's well established, and so
right. And it'd be best environmentally for
Sure, absolutely.
and easiest for everybody to.
it may make it hard to follow the proposed rule about being in the side yard or the backyard, because the pump is not always in the side yard or the backyard.
Right.
Mine's in the front yard, for example, but
Some may have I suppose you could run a line over someplace.
Well, and that's what you're, at that point in time, you're just going to have to run a waste line from wherever you want it to
wherever it
your
is.
main, and just know that that's
I guess so.
right.
Yeah. I mean, it's not going to work for everybody, obviously.
Right.
My house is perfect. I got power and I got that opening right next to my house and the water's right there. But I'm sure there's other residents that maybe it wouldn't work for without doing some major. But
Right.
wherever it
Well,
can
we're
happen.
trying to capture people in an uncommon and temporary situation to a certain extent,
Right.
in addition to just people vacationing.
Right.
following-
But like I can also think of, we wouldn't necessarily want a big old RV pulling right into someone's front yard where all of a sudden you no longer see their house,
Right.
but just a great big RV. So definitely coming up with some criteria on what a appropriate situation would be and what a not appropriate situation would be.
Right. Well,
And when you were looking at other communities, were they similar sizes, varying sizes?
Varying sizes. A lot of them were, the place I found was Pierce County, and they had a county regulation, and in every city they had listed on there all different sizes. And so I just kind of scrolled through them all, and because they were easy to find, and just tried to see. So I think there was a variety of sizes in Pierce County. They got some small cities that had something similar, and some were fairly restrictive. They were all over the place, just like we are here. But anyway,
I'll just say I like the idea. I think anything we can do to encourage more people to reside downtown is only going to help strengthen local businesses, restaurants, the whole environment. So, anything we can do.
where would these go downtown?
well,
What are you talking about downtown?
not downtown probably. But
Well, I'm thinking my house, right?
It's the whole thing.
But my house.
City Hall.
Wait, isn't that what we were talking about? No. But I mean, you think of how many houses we have that are on oversized lots.
Right. That's
Right.
what I said. I have
My
one
house?
spot that never gets used.
Yeah, we're on a double lot. I mean, I wouldn't want to do it, but I could probably put two on there and you'd never even know they were there. I wouldn't want to do that, but I'm just saying, maybe I would want to do that. I don't know. Yeah. You never know. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's probably reasonable and needed direction to go here, and I like a lot of what you put. I have a question about enforcement capabilities. We're kind of throwing around what we'd like to see, and I know we have an enforcement person, but I guess we won't really know what kind of volume we're gonna see until we put this in place, and it, you know, it could be something that it's, you know, it's hard for somebody to really get around and see what is the black and gray water situation and what is the power situation, you know, but that's kind of the situation now, I guess. So we can put in the language and
People are doing
see.
it now.
But
I really truly believe people
yeah,
are having
yeah.
people stay in their places now, and we'd have no oversight of it because nobody's even.
It would be nice to kind of touch base with our enforcement person as well and just kind of keep them in the
Right.
loop and
I was hoping
and
he'd
get
be here,
feedback.
and
Yeah,
I know he's come to some meetings, but
I can't remember.
that was part of my reason we'd have some kind of fee would help pay. I think he kind of works on an hourly basis, so
Mm.
just, hopefully that fee would help pay for any time he had to spend, you know, going to check it, to make sure they're doing the right things, and, yeah. I had something else I was gonna say, but I forget, so,
Yeah.
anyway.
The 25 for the sewer hookup seems a little kind of low to me, maybe, but I don't know. It's
Well,
not a lot of
I-
money.
I
If
think-
you're at an RV, if you're at a campsite, it's like 35, 50 bucks a night,
Right.
something like that.
And unfortunately, our sewer bills are already elevated to a certain
So
extent
this
here
would buy
within the
that
city
down
limits.
to a certain extent.
So I agree with what you're saying. I mean, $25 I guess does seem a little bit low when you consider what the minimum is, like 155 for a household, whether you use it or
That's
not.
water and sewer, and but yeah.
Right.
Well, there's-
I just threw a number in there.
If we
No,
can,
no, totally.
I mean, if
Yeah.
we're gonna do it and we're gonna get a benefit out of it, then like the city, I mean, I feel like all the residents should benefit a little bit by having that fee go to draw down everyone's sewer bill. And 25 is just not a lot of money, but
You know, we're not gonna make any dent
We're not
in
gonna-
sewer bills. by
I mean-
doing this, yeah.
every little hookup counts, right? Isn't that part of what we're trying to do here? I don't know.
Yeah. My thought was to try to keep it reasonable for people that are coming here, whether it's somebody that's been, you know, temporarily houseless, and, you know, if you're gonna start causing them, you know, it's gonna cost them $150 a month, people are not gonna wanna do it if it's gonna cost that much, is so,
Mm.
like I said, $25, I don't know if that's right, but, yeah.
I
Go ahead. No, you go.
was to say, I wonder about the all zones language. We might look at the zones and think a little bit about if it's really appropriate for all zones. We might also want to consider limitation on the number of RVs, like explicitly stating, you know, one per house. And then I was
Per
wondering,
residential lot or whatever, yeah.
yeah, and I was wondering too about the, what was your thought on the, I guess, justification for not having it on an empty lot? Is it just kind of because it's obvious that it's,
I just took that from the other ones. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not against that totally. I think probably the thought was they wanted someplace, like you said, that was already established and had water and sewer on it already. So if you just had empty lots all over town that people were parking a trailer on,
Right.
all of a sudden, I think that would be a little different than.
And the way I kind of look at it too is it's almost like you want the RV to be sponsored by someone, right? Like you want someone to be living there and they're a guest of their,
Responsible,
yeah, they're responsible. It's on their property versus just like, oh yeah, I'm on the lot for the next, 120 days. So
yeah. I guess in my mind, there would still be a property owner of that lot who would
Yeah.
be allowing or not allowing
Right.
that person.
And I guess true, even if their house is there, it doesn't mean they live there all the time, but there might be a better chance that at least,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Back to the aesthetic part, I mean, I guess it typically looks better if it's with a house. I think in general, I like the direction of this.
Yeah, no, I really like the idea. I think
Maybe I
that,
can talk to our codes guy and see if he has any suggestions as far as what
Yeah.
we should put in there as far
Yeah.
as making
Mhm.
sure that we have a little bit control over it. See if he has any suggestions, because I haven't talked to him either about
Where's the,
It'd
where's
It'd
the
be nice
nearest
to hear
place?
from Troy too on
in the sewer
if we
pump.
can easily hook into the grinder pump or if you have to do some extensive trenching and like that sort of thing.
Mhm. I'd also be curious where the nearest place to dump kind of your portable
we take
ones.
it.
What's that?
Tenino takes it. At the
You can
one-
take your RV stuff right up here?
yeah.
Well, they take commercial.
Because RV stuff has like
We do wanna get there though.
Oh, I thought we
chemicals
were-
and stuff in it too that
Yeah.
I don't know.
We're taking commercial, not
Good point.
Commercial stuff, yeah.
Right, I was gonna just mention that I'm familiar enough with RV and trailer, toilet systems that they've got that blue, the blue like neutralizer in there a lot of times, and I don't know if you're dumping that into the sewer, if that throws off the chemical balance at the treatment plant.
That would be.
Yeah,
good
and I
to
don't
know.
know if you're permanently hooked up, you do that. I mean, I know if you're traveling and you have it
Right.
in there, but if it's just going straight to
But
the,
that might be something to add to the
Yeah.
regulation, like take
you
that
can't use any
system
chemicals
off.
in your, yeah.
I don't know.
I'll talk to Troy about that, because I know there was
Questions, yeah.
something about the sewers, and so if we do allow that, I'll see what he has to say about that.
I think the kicker from a land use regulation standpoint, I think you want to remember that it's a critical aquifer recharge zone. I think the whole city, if I'm not mistaken, Ryan, when we were looking at this earlier, the whole city's in a critical aquifer recharge. So if people are just dumping it, it's
Right.
going to get into the aquifer.
And that's why I
you know.
want to make it so easy for them.
And then
Right.
into the quarry pool, right? And then we're
Yeah.
swimming in it. And then
Or whatever.
They're not going to do something stupid, hopefully.
And the hard part is when you put something in the backyard, and it's fenced and screened, but nobody really knows what's going on back there. So in one sense, you could, like for temporary uses, like the streetery that we're doing out here, or another temporary use like a farmer's market, or it's pretty obvious that you're going to take it up and put it down, whatever. If you're doing 120 days, you're going to have to post that RV, let's say, with a notice, or run a database somewhere so that you know
Where they're
which
at.
one is expiring when, and then Rainey's going to go out and enforce that and say, you're supposed to be out today. Oh, no, we need one more day, right? Or
Right.
whatever. And so, or enforce the fact that someone's going to pull it for 14 days and then bring it back. So there is, I think Rainey Durant is the code enforcement guy. He's definitely the guy to talk to, because he's the one who'd have to be following up on
You have
this.
to make sure the permit and the fees cover all of the expenses that we're going to have for
Correct.
managing
Yeah.
the system, I suppose.
And we currently, there's a whole host of other structures in the city we don't let people live in. If you can't currently bring in a single wide to the city and site it on a residential lot. So someone could make the case, what if I bring in a single wide and put it on the lot and I live in there for 120 days and I, go on a visit and come back. So there's all those like secondary consequences that I start thinking about.
Yeah, that's why. The ones I saw were all very specifically said RVs or travel trailers, not, mobile homes. So hopefully that's real clear, that only those two types of. There may be some definitions, maybe we need to include some definitions of some of these things and what we mean, RVs or blah, blah, blah.
Maybe I'll poke one other way. What about, has the city ever considered a municipal RV park, like a lot that has a permanent, not like a campground, with full RV hookups, and you
We
pay.
have a campground that's not
I-
managed or kept up now.
yeah, well, yeah, we have a lot of space over there that.
Is it the city's?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the city park. I mean,
we
it
own
used
a
to be
huge-
a campground, and
Well, a big campground.
There's
people
like
used to use it.
5 spots.
There's not very many spots.
There's no real anything there. There's like, some
There was
rocks on the
talk of
ground for
putting in a
camp.
dump station there, but I don't think they ever did it.
And it's been closed for several years now.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's not any city ran park. I mean, there's an RV park down here, and then there's a small one. Well, that's not an RV park, that's a trailer, but there's a little
Yeah,
RV
that
place down here.
That one's classified as a mobile home park, even though it's just a bunch of RVs.
Uses it.
But I think so, yeah.
But if you want, I think you might be able to accomplish a similar purpose if you're looking for a place for, Junior to hang out while the construction's going on, or Grandma and Grandpa while they're visiting over Thanksgiving. That might be a viable option, is to retrofit a site for a municipal RV park with full hookups, charge, whatever you're going to charge for that, for the power and the water and the sewer. So that might be an idea. I have no idea if that's Wayne's into that or not, but that was just something I thought of.
I just thought this would be easy, using existing stuff that's already there versus having to build a whole new,
Okay.
Anyway, I'll look into it some
Yeah.
more and come back. I just
Bring it
wanted
back.
to kind of see what people felt about it and whether I could spend some more time. So this is kind of just a first cut, and I'll get some better information and
Perfect.
try to clarify some stuff some more and see. We'll go from there.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
You guys are coming in at the tail end of our meeting. Do you want to say anything?
Yes, I actually have a question.
Can you come up to the podium?
I'm Jim Smutka, and I'm from the Tenino Eagles. And I guess I have a question. We noticed some new construction going on in front of the Shiplap Cafe. That looks like it's extending out into the street,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to take parking places. And we're just wondering what the legality of that is, being a state highway, and what the city has to say. It also takes part of the sidewalk. We already have a congested parking problem in town. You know, if the Shiplap uses their spaces in front, that just means their customers are going to take spaces in front of the Eagles. And, you know, what gives them the right to take up? Is that public parking? Is it their parking? You know, what is that? And, you know, I mean, we just saw this showing up today, and we just have a concern as to, you know, is that legal? Is it not legal? Has there been a building permit applied for?
Mm-hmm.
Has the planning commission approved that?
I think we can answer. Dan, do you want to answer his question?
Sure. So I'll start with Planning Commission's talked about something called parklets and streeteries. So those are, you know, you may have seen those during the pandemic in some cities around the region. That's an outdoor seating area that is outside, usually directly outside a restaurant or sometimes even a bar, where that business is kind of sponsored and paid for a structure to be allowed to be in the street or in a parallel parking stall to kind of expand their space. You know, back in the early pandemic, people weren't really eating inside. You know, everyone was eating outside. So that's been done successfully all over our state. In this particular instance, we recommended to the proprietor of that business that they apply for what's called a temporary use permit, which would allow a 90-day temporary use of that parallel parking stall for this type of use, for kind of an expanded outdoor seating area. That permit, they submitted for that application, I think today or yesterday they submitted their money. So I've seen a site plan. We haven't approved anything yet.
The structure's there.
What's that?
The structure is there.
Well, I saw the decking today, this afternoon. So it probably doesn't need a building permit. It's not large enough, and it's not going to be tall enough that's going to trigger the International Building Code on it. But there is a process that we are going through to review, you know, the appropriateness of the request. But we haven't finished that process yet.
Okay.
Probably something.
Well, the question we have is, if you haven't approved it yet, it looks like they're already putting it in place. I mean, the parking is blocked right now,
Right. Yep.
and part of the sidewalk is blocked right now.
Yeah, it's like a 2 feet up onto the sidewalk. I think something like that.
Yeah.
I think it's proposed to stick about 5 feet out from the curb face, so it's a 7-foot wide deck and 2 feet onto the sidewalk and 5 feet out into the drive aisle, something like that.
And that is acceptable as a state highway?
Well, he just submitted the building permit application, like I said, either today or yesterday. Yesterday, yeah. So it's kind of like in process.
Well, again, I'm just saying, if it's in process, they've already got it in place.
Yeah, well, it's got the deck. I think you saw the posts in the corners. I think he's planning on doing a railing, kind of like a fenced railing all the way around the sides.
He's got all the, what do you call them, the stringers and the posts in place and everything. Like I say, the road is blocked right now as far as parking is concerned.
Right, that parking stall that was right in front of his business is blocked, that's right.
My suggestion would be call City Hall. That should be something our building official takes care of.
Well, I called City Hall and I was kind of directed to come and talk to you people tonight because there was a meeting.
So the planning commission does, it's an administrative action, and the planning commission doesn't have a role. We briefed them
Okay.
on the kind of the concept to see if they were, in favor of this type of use, because it's streeteries and parklets aren't called out specifically in the code, so that's why we're running it under a temporary use permit instead of like a permanent type of situation. So my understanding is that Shiplap has got some photo magazine shoot coming up in the next week or so, where some national quilting magazine's going to come and take some pictures. So it could be as quick as a week or two out there.
And then it'd be gone.
You'd have to talk to the proprietor of the Shiplap about their plans, but technically you're supposed to wait till you get permits.
Right. Well, I guess our concern a little bit is we have a parking lot in back of the Eagles that belongs to the Eagles. It's maintained by the Eagles. Property taxes are paid by the Eagles. We have it posted Eagle member parking only. But yet, everybody and their uncle, including patrons of Shiplap, park back there. We don't want to be nasty about it and have cars towed, but if we're going to lose parking in front of the street and their customers have no room to park, so where are they going to go? They're going to go down and park in front of the Eagles, and where are our patrons going to park? And so do we start getting nasty and start towing vehicles? It's, parking is an issue, in that district down there. And this is only going to make it worse.
Tell me if I'm wrong, as part of that, applying for that temporary permit, there should be some process for the public to speak up on that, shouldn't there, during the approval of it? Or is there?
I think you can appeal the administrative decision, so it's an administrative process. There's no mandatory public notice of that. So you'd have to appeal the administrative determination, and that would go before the council for review. So the facts are that the permit was applied for yesterday. We haven't issued a building permit or a use permit at all, and so I think the owner of the Shiplap is raring to go and getting ahead of himself. And I would just suggest you go chat with Gary and see.
He's not been receptive in the past when we've asked him to have his patrons not park in our parking lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know the duration. They didn't really put that in the application of when they were going to run this thing, but I do recall that they were going to have some type of magazine shoot in the next 10 days or something like that, 2 weeks.
Okay. So what would your recommendation be to the Eagles, to take it to the city council?
Well, you certainly can comment on anything. There's really nothing to appeal yet because there's no permit that's been issued.
Well, there's no permit, but yet there's a structure.
Well, there's a platform.
Yeah, well, it's
You
a
could-
structure that's parking.
You can
in the
file a
stru-
complaint with the city that they're doing something that's not permitted.
Yeah.
Well, that's where I went first, and I was kind of recommended to come and talk to you guys tonight. And I appreciate you listening to me.
Sure,
We don't
of
have
course.
any authority to change it, so my suggestion
Yeah,
would
we
be
can't change
to the mayor,
Okay.
There's a citizen action request on our website, and if you go fill that out, it does go to the mayor as well as Public Works and Code Enforcement, so.
Okay.
And it's a private club, so you should be able to control your own parking lot.
Yeah, I understand
your
that. I
option
mean,
on
we're
that.
just,
try not.
we're trying to be neighborly, but when parking gets choked off,
Sure.
we have members, dues-paying members that are saying, hey, where are we going to park? So they're looking at the management of the Eagles to say, do something about it.
Right.
So,
I understand.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah,
You're
thanks.
welcome.
Hello.
So I was here yesterday, and I'm here to try and get a fence around my piece of property. So I'm looking to have the easement on the alleyway abandoned, because an alleyway it just means narrow passage intended for it's just to serve the back of the lots. And there's some confusion between everybody I've spoke with so far at the city as what the use is, and they have insisted up until this point that there's nothing they can do about it. But it should be abandoned because I have 2/3 of the owners of, well, the entire block has agreed to abandon it privately amongst us. So my vision
There's
is
2 owners of that block, right?
there's a third in the middle. So Tabitha has front and back, I have front and back, and then Bruce and Nina are right there, like in a pocket.
Okay.
So I have a lot of like random people, some people who are definitely tweaking, walking right behind my property, you know, like my shop, it literally takes up the entire property. There's like 1 foot on each side of it on the entire lot. So my back door is open to all sorts of things, and I have a lot of expensive equipment and race cars and things like that inside there. And my initial vision was to fence this entire lot, because in the planning for on the city's website, it's issued in 2015 that entire street on Lincoln, I think is what it is that runs behind, it should be changed to commercial, and for the future zoning plans that have been proposed in 2015. And when I moved here in 2020, I was already aware of this, and nothing's changed since then, and wouldn't expect it to necessarily. But now that I'm here, and I've been here for 2 years, I have a plan to fence that entire piece off, put a shop back there, and then my entire place is secured, and I can have a bullpen while having a shop and a paint booth, etc. So what I need is I need a vacation of that alleyway. So, and I'm gonna just allow access to the city at any point in time with keys that'll be on each end, and Tabitha, I know, wants to do the same thing. So that's what I'm here to accomplish. If I don't know what to do other than to get a real estate attorney and then to have him handle it for me, because he'll know all the proper terminology to not make a mountain.
What's the zoning of the lot behind the business now on Lincoln?
What's that?
What's the zoning of the vacant lot right now?
I'm not sure. It's been in my family for 30 years, so it's time to do something with
It's
it.
probably residential, I guess, maybe on Lincoln. I don't know.
It is, and because it's a future zoned, and the future zoning has not been like pushed through yet. So
It's SFD, so single family duplex.
And
On the back lot, and then.
are there plans to make Lincoln a commercial, like that side of Lincoln, the south side of Lincoln commercial? I didn't know that, but
I don't.
they're on the
So,
site.
Right where he's at, it's a little bit further to the west that C3 picks up. So C3 picks up when you get, closer to town.
so what is the business, current business zoned C2? That's C3. That's C3, right?
Yeah.
Also? Oh, I see. The C3 zoning along Lincoln picks up further to the west.
Yeah, C3 zoning goes like this, and then it pops up and picks up, the parcels along Lincoln, and then that lot that's kind of parallel to his, converts to like C1 or C2.
So what is the process for vacating an alley?
C1.
Dan?
We chatted about that when we did our walkthrough.
I remember that.
It's just a city process. You don't even have to have property owner consent because it's all city right away. You know, it's a city access point.
And that doesn't have anything to do with us, does it?
Planning commission? No. Other than, when we did our walkthrough, Lincoln was one of the ones that was actually used as an alleyway compared to other alleys in the city that were
Right.
not, that even had some, parcels that had already, through various processes, had already picked up the center line.
Probably the alley
and
between,
had structures
yeah.
and fences and stuff like that.
the alleys between 507 and Lincoln and 507 and Central are pretty much the only ones in the city that are used,
So the
really.
ones that are, the first offset from Sussex, those alleys are pretty much, used as alleys. Those are the only alleys like that in the city from my recollection. They're all the way, the punch all the way through.
Yeah, and even then, nobody should be driving on it. There shouldn't be public access to it because it's literally described as that it shouldn't have public access to it. It is literally, an alley is only intended to serve the people of the property to the rear access of the building. So I should have every right to vacate the alleyway, especially when 3/3 of the people on the block are in agreement to this.
I walked down there and I didn't see, I know some of the alley places, people park their cars behind their houses and stuff. I just walked through there because I knew you were gonna be here, and it doesn't appear that people are putting their garbage cans back there or, you know.
No, it's just
I
all
don't
my
see any-
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to have it all just enclosed for the sake of privacy. I literally don't want to have a conversation with every person that walks by my shop. And right now, that's what I'm married to, you know? Whether them be friendlies or not, you know?
Right.
I just don't need it if I don't want it.
Right.
So I guess my only question would be, I would love to, especially on one like this, hear what the fire department has to say.
We've talked to them about that, and they're, so far, the mayor anyway, not so much the fire department hasn't been over. I would be curious to see what they had to say also, but I can't envision a reason to need to have a fire truck back there where they couldn't get to at any other point in that block. It's not huge. So, and even then, the chief literally said, if I need to get in, I'll ram through it. So I don't know if they have permission to access it at any point in time. You will fit a fire truck through there because I have race trailers that are larger than fire trucks that need to make it through. So there'll be no reason a fire truck can't get back there if it's in need.
When I was talking to somebody about it, I was a firefighter, so, you know, theoretically, it'd be nice to be able to get back there if something was on fire, but I think if there's a gate there that they could just.
You'd see me waving you in, you know, I would want you there. Yeah, if there was a
And you
fire.
just cut the lock, you're not there.
Yeah,
You have a
exactly.
lock on it and they cut the lock, and that's, I mean, what we did all the time, so.
Perfect.
A
We're.
gate would be, yeah.
It's not up to us though.
I know, it seems to be everybody I run into says the same thing. So I'm.
Well, it's really not up to us though, right, Dan? Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, it's a council, you know.
And you went to the city council and they said talk to us?
Yeah, this is the patty cake shit I'm dealing with.
They're sending all their problems to us.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
We're
I'm
an
getting pawned off.
advisory body. We're not even elected, so, you know, we advise the council on things, but I mean, in this sense, well, you can't actually take an action on that, I don't think.
Yeah,
Like, that's not our
there's.
role.
So who's responsible?
I mean, I can go. report
Who do I need to
council
talk
at the
to?
Next meeting. I'd be glad to go take from our perspective, that this is a council decision, and if we want to make a recommendation, or you want to say we're cool with it, I guess that's okay, but it's really there. So I would be glad to go to the next meeting and say, as a body, we talked about it, and this is their decision, so they are clear on that for you.
Yeah, there should be no discrepancies, really. I just want it to happen. I appreciate you wanting to try and help me with that. It's just, I literally talked to more people than I care to, like at least 5 or 6 about this, and it's like I've had passive aggressive comments thrown at me that, oh, we're already letting you park your vehicles on the back lot, you know, it's not commercial, we shouldn't really be doing that. And I'm not going to stand for that either, because that's ridiculous. Like, I'm creating revenue for the place. I've completely changed the entire look of it. As far as I can tell, I'm the only one that shovels the street in front of my place. And if Tenino wants to take it to the next level, as collectively, they need to take accountability for the face of the town, and that being the main street, which is your fucking, excuse my language, like your smile. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not gonna wanna just have a shitty smile, you know? Get a nice clean smile and people are gonna wanna move in here. You know? You can put in as many BMX pump tracks and all that sort of stuff, ain't gonna make a difference. That's all I'm saying.
No? Make good points, I guess, on that regard, but, I mean, again, I think the city council is the place that you need to.
I'll go to the next meeting
Take
and
it,
just
so.
make sure they know if they have any questions of what we talked about. I'll be there to answer those questions for you, and
Cool.
hopefully they'll understand that that's their decision to make. And
Yeah, not to be wasting your guys' time with my problems, you know?
No, I mean,
no, it's great.
it's nice to have citizens come in and.
I know, I'm a little bit upset that there's not more people here. I'm like gonna start dragging people to these things.
This is a.
Oh yeah? Yeah, it's
Having the two of you guys come in was actually a pretty big change.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Nice.
Usually we're by ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yesterday there was even just a few people here, and I think, I don't know. I'm at least
It would be
curious
nice if more
about what's going on in small towns, and I live here now, just down the street, so I guess I'll just come sit in sometimes. Yeah.
Sure, you're welcome anytime.
Okay. When is the next meeting that will be happening?
Yes.
Tuesday?
Second, yeah, the 23rd, hold on, I can tell you that,
2 weeks from yesterday.
2 weeks from yesterday.
Is that right?
So the 24th will be the next city council meeting.
Of this month.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they have 2 a month.
I
We
won't
just
be
have-
here.
We just have 1.
But I won't be here, no.
I would just,
Unfortunately, I'm leaving
if you
town.
wanna write something up that can be presented to them in writing, have you already done that?
No.
Because if you wanna email that to me, I'm happy to make sure that it gets put, I mean, if I can get it to Dave, if he wants to read it on your behalf, or if I don't really know how that works either.
I think you should write something up for
I
him.
think-
I mean, if you want to
I think
request
we
it,
should
you need to
have-
request it
Was
to the
it-
city council.
Yeah.
I'll just be there to answer any questions and say, hey, we're here.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've already talked to Public Works and the mayor, but I would include what they've said, or if they have said anything.
Yeah, the fire department, just make
Yeah,
your
the fire
case,
department,
write a
if
letter.
they said, that they have access to the gate and it's fine, then I would include all that as well.
And then if you
All
have,
the information.
if you have your surrounding neighbors on that block that would also sign off on that letter,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
then
Makes a
they're,
better case.
Stronger case.
Couldn't
yeah.
hurt, make an official request, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I want it to be as done as possible. So if I can just write a letter and have everyone sign it and give it to David, or you, and you guys can express my feelings at this next council meeting, to where maybe the next time we meet up, it's figured out. That would be really convenient and nice for me.
Yeah.
So,
I think we go from there. Yeah.
cool. Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
For sure.
Do you know if there's any utilities in that back there on the back?
There's not.
There's nothing.
It's just completely vacant. It's just open.
just
Well,
dirt, no,
the utilities would be buried.
I mow it. There's nothing there.
do you know where the sewer, grinder pumps are for the house and the whatever else, your place?
On
The 3
lots,
two
yeah.
houses and.
Yeah, I know where that stuff's at, and the water meters and stuff like that, are just outside the building.
So add that to your letter, I would say,
There's
to,
no, yeah.
Whoever made.
these are the reasons why people wouldn't want it.
With the
I mean,
with the
would be
fence,
against it, I
yeah,
guess.
with the fence, can they still access the water meter?
Yeah, everything's completely accessible.
Outside of the fence?
No, they have to come into the lot, but wouldn't be an issue. They're open, and I spent a lot of time there, so, they're 6 to 8 feet.
Well, there are many yards that our guys have to go into to access a water meter, so,
Yeah.
It's not any different than,
yeah, it's not really any different, yeah. Okay.
Okie dokie, thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other announcements or topics of discussion? Because we're at the end of the meeting.
Oh, I won't be able to attend the next meeting.
Okay.
Maybe Jen, can you keep that, the trailer thing on the next agenda?
Yep.
So, under, I guess, old business now, but.
Okay, well, if that's it, then meeting adjourned. Back with my